One of my sole sources of income is doing these virtual tours. I make them free because I realize there's a lot of people who are in the same boat as me, where finances have become quite difficult. And I do not want anybody to miss out on the opportunity to connect to this place that we all love, the land of Israel. But if you do have it in your heart and in your wallet to help out, to donate, to give gratuity, however you want to call it, to myself and to my family to help support us, in the chat, there is a link to my PayPal account, or in an email. If you guys subscribe, I'll send you out an email with a recording of this tour. And along with it, I'll send a link to make it a little easier for you. Just hit the link. And if you want to leave something for me, it would obviously be greatly appreciated by myself and my family. And it goes far and wide. Obviously, I'm spending the money here as well, so everybody appreciates it. Israel is heading into another lockdown, which means starting tomorrow at 2 p.m., we will no longer be able to leave our homes other than food shopping, going to the pharmacy, essential, activities. We won't be able to leave our homes more than 1,500 feet. So basically, you can just run around the block, get some exercise, take your kids out. But we are going to be in a lockdown. We did this in March, which lasted, I think, almost 2 months. The whole country was in a lockdown. It was very effective. We almost got rid of Corona altogether, but we opened up probably everything too soon, and it started to spread. And right now, it's spreading like wildfire. Just in my neighborhood, and I live in a small neighborhood, 250 families on a hilltop. In fact, almost lost my kippah. You can see the neighborhood of Efrat over there. I live in a small neighborhood. You probably can't even really make it out. Hold on, let me see if I got you. It's just over there somewhere. And the problem is keeping these kippahs on when you're going bald. You got to have a clip to hold it down tight. Should wear a hat. Let me go down where it's a little bit less windy. In my neighborhood, 2 people have been tested positive for COVID-19. One of them is good friends with a friend of mine who I was actually with. One of them is a friend of mine who was with a good friend of mine who I was with. So, once removed, my good friend didn't test positive, but as a result, we were going out for all 4 meals of Rosh Hashanah. And today we canceled them all because we don't want to bring that to anybody. And just because of, you just don't know right now, and schools have shut down, teachers were tested positive. So we went food shopping. I've been cooking all day. My cameraman, who is usually with me, he is in quarantine. He couldn't come out with me. So it's just been a crazy, crazy day. Hectic time over here. But I did want to do this tour before we go into lockdown because I won't be able to do these anymore for at least 3 weeks. Although I do live in such a wonderful place, an incredible neighborhood that I overlook, a place called Birchat Shlomo, Solomon's Pools, which were used to collect the water from the springs that surround the area of Gush Etzion and as far south as Hebron, and brought the waters to Solomon's Pools, and from there to Jerusalem and onwards to the temple. We have the ruins of the aqueduct system. We can overlook Bethlehem from where I live. We can see Birchat Shlomo. So I think at some point during this lockdown, I will actually do a virtual tour from my neighborhood, from Dagan, and maybe even meet some of the, my neighbors, all very, very interesting, beautiful, wonderful people. We'll see the aqueduct system. We'll see Birchat Shlomo. We'll overlook Bethlehem. And I think it'll be interesting. It'll be a way for us still to continue this excitement that is brewing with these virtual tours. We've been getting a lot of positive feedback, both in words and as well as donations. And I appreciate both very, very much. So let's just get started right now. The tour today, we're going to be going down an area known as the Path of the Patriarchs, okay? The Path of the Patriarchs is a route that was used for thousands and thousands of years, even before our patriarchs. And when I say our patriarchs, what am I referring to? I am referring to Abraham, right? Abraham, I'm trying to remember to use the English names, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, okay? Their wives, their families. For many of us who are here today as Jews, all of our families lived here in Israel we don't know when we were sent into exile, whether it was during the Roman period, say 2,000 years ago, or maybe during the Crusader period 1,000 years ago, or maybe due to Muslim oppression for 1,400 years that they lived here in the land of Israel. Maybe we left at some point during that time. However, prior to our leaving, our expulsion, however it was, we lived, and many of us lived on these mountains, right? These mountains here. This is why we call it the Judean Mountains. Many of our families lived on those mountains over there. Every single hilltop that you can see, and I understand it's not so clear on the video, but every single one of those hilltops was settled. Every one of them was settled. And I have friends who live in areas, and for those of you who've been here to Israel and are very familiar with it, like Rabbi Barnea Sullivan, there's a place called Karmei Tzor on the way towards Hebron. A friend of mine who lives there saw a depression, right? There was a dip in his land that flooded every winter. And so he started to dig there and try to figure out what's going on. And it ended up that he discovered a cistern, a place to collect water during the winter months 2,000 years ago when there was a Jewish community that lived there. And he dug out the entire, cistern, and he turned it into a mikvah, which is a ritual bath for spiritual purification that I have used several times. And it's open. It's his private owned mikvah, 2,000-year-old cistern, very, very special place to go to. If anybody wants to see a video on that, I did make a 2-3 minute information video on it, and I can email that to you as well. And speaking of mikvahs, we're actually going to see an ancient mikvah, a 2,000-year-old mikvah that was used, again, by Jews for hundreds and hundreds of years until our expulsion from this land. And we're going to go a little bit in depth later on exactly when that happened, how it happened, and what took place after it occurred. So the path of the patriarchs, the main path, the main section of this ancient highway ran from Hebron, which is about 20 minutes south of me, to Jerusalem, which is about 20 minutes north of where I am right now. And so, which makes us right in the middle of it. And there are some tremendous archaeological discoveries that have been found along this way, but it's really special to be able to walk on this path and to see that it's still being used by Jews today the same way it was used 2,000 years ago, as a conduit between two places to get from point A to point B. Now, I start here in a yeshuv, in a neighborhood called Neve Daniel, at this overlook called Mitzpor HaElef, right, the 1,000-meter overlook, because you have this incredible 360-degree view. And unfortunately, it is very hazy, but you can see Jerusalem just to the south of me. You can see the tall buildings of Jerusalem, and with the binoculars, the high-powered binoculars they have on top, you can actually see Harabite, the Temple Mount, the Dome of the Rock. And looking out towards the east, which is in that direction, you can see a place called Herodian. Well, Lee, you'll be able to see the Hebron tour again. I hope to be able to give it again. You can see Herodian, which was a fortress, a palace that was built by King Herod. And it was really from there that he ruled over Jerusalem. And further east, and again, it's hazy. I can't even see it. Never mind the iPhone picking it up. But all the way further to the east, you can see the Moab Mountains, the mountains of the Moabite nation, which is in today Jordan. On a clear day, looking west, right? West is in this direction. That's why my face is all lit up right now, because the sun is setting. It sets to the west. In that direction, on a clear day, you can see the Mediterranean. You can see the sea, which means from this vantage point that we're at right now, the 1,000-meter overlook, you can see the entire breadth, the entire width of Eretz Israel, of the land of Israel, from the Mediterranean all the way to Jordan, or what was the Moabite nation at that time. You got to remember, Israel is very small. It's incredibly small. We think of it as being this large place because there's so much history here and there's so much beauty here and there's so many places to visit. But in reality, it's the size of New Jersey, my friends. It's the size of New Jersey. It's half the size of Lake Michigan, which means that all of Israel, including Judea and Samaria, which some people call the West Bank, or have other terms for, including Judea and Samaria, the entire area is half the size of one of the lakes that you have in America. It's incredibly small. But even in this small territory that we have, the size of New Jersey, you have 12 very distinct geological, horticultural, different plant life and animal life areas. 12. It's easy to remember this 12 because how many tribes of Israel do we have? Right? The 12 sons of Jacob, right? Who was also known as Israel. That's why we're called Bnei Israel, the children of Israel. We're talking about Jacob, the last of the patriarchs. So 12 different areas. What are they? You have the upper and lower Galilee. We're starting from the north. Then you have a very small area known as the Hula Valley, which is an incredible ecosystem that during the migration season, you literally have 500 million, my friends, 500 million birds that pass through the Hula Valley in Eretz Israel during each migration season. So most of these birds are the same going back and forth. They got a round trip ticket, but 1 billion birds are flying through Israel with the two migration seasons put together. That's the Hula Valley. And then you have the Golan Heights to the east of the Hula Valley. Right? So you have the Golan Heights, which is all volcanic rock. It was all, created by volcanic explosions. And then you have the Jordan Valley, right? The Jordan Valley, the Jordan River. Then you'll have the Arava Valley, which is south of the Dead Sea. Eilat, which is its own place, its own mountains, the Eilat Mountains, it's its own territory. You have the Negev Desert, which is a huge area here in Israel. You have the Negev Desert. You have the coastal plains that go from Gaza all the way up to Haifa. Most notably, most people know Tel Aviv, the big city here in Israel. So you have the coastal plains. And then you have the beautiful rolling hills of the Shvela, the foothills that lead up to the mountainous area of Judea. That's where I'm at right now. And Samaria, right? Judea and Samaria. So these are 12 very distinct areas in a very, very small parcel of land the size of New Jersey. And from where we are right now, we can see the entire breadth, not the length, but the entire breadth of Eretz Yisrael, which at its widest point here today, including Judea and Samaria, it's only about 70 miles wide. We can remember that number very easily because when was the temple destroyed, or the second temple? In the year 70 CE. So Israel's 70 miles wide, and it has 12 very distinct geological areas, like the 12 tribes of Israel. And it's notable to see that from here, you can just imagine that when Abraham got his nevuah, one of his many nevuahs, his prophecies, from Hebron, which is located just over that way. We did a virtual tour of Hebron. When he had his nevuah, God told him both to look up at the sky and see the stars, and he promised that the children of Israel, his descendants, would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. And he said, but not only that, I want you to look to the east, and I want you to look to the west, and to the north, and to the south. And all of this land that you see, I promise as an inheritance, as a heritage to your descendants, to the children of Israel, to the Jewish nation. And from here, you can see he must have seen so much land. It's inconceivable that when it came time to bury his wife, Sarah, that he actually went and purchased. He actually made the purchase to purchase that parcel of land, that small little cave in the fields in the Hebron Valley. But we get a good view of that from here. We can imagine what that was like. It's just 20 minutes south of us, maybe 12 miles south of us, is where Hebron lies, the mountaintop in which he stood, in which he had that prophecy. Gush Etzion, where we're going through, is a very important area, both historically as well as today. There's an abundant amount of springs here, lots of agriculture as a result. Again, we have to remember, it only rains here 6 months out of the year. So in ancient times, if you're going to grow some agriculture, you need a living source of water. That living source of water is abundant here in Gush Etzion because of the springs that we have here. And we're going to see some of that biblical agriculture as we're riding along the path of the patriarchs. And I do plan on stopping there. We are at the 1,000-meter overlook, the highest point in Gush Etzion, the highest point in this entire area. And as a result, this is now the watershed line. This is the continental divide. All the rain that falls in this region, anything that falls in that direction is going to flow towards the east. And what's towards the east? The Dead Sea. So rain comes down here, it flows east towards the Dead Sea, or it flows west. And maybe when we're on the path of the patriarchs, we'll see some of the valleys that are down below. You can imagine all that water heads out towards Tel Aviv and the Mediterranean. So we are in the continental divide here, the highest point in Gush Etzion, and an area in which Abraham received his nevuah, his prophecy, in which he was told that all of this would be an inheritance to the Jewish people. And I know that we have some Christian friends who are with us today. And my wife and I host huge Shabbat meals, and we don't care who comes, right? This isn't just for religious Jews, just for secular Jews, or not even just for Jews. We invite anybody who wants to come over and feel that special energy, that special time that we call the Sabbath, that we call Shabbat. And one time we had this large group, a large Christian group, 25 of them, and they came over for Shabbat. And my wife said, what was the most meaningful moment for you on this tour? And this one lady gave a beautiful answer. She said, you know, honestly, David, when I landed at David Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv, she said, I felt like I was coming home. Now, that was strange for me to hear as a Jewish man, to hear a Christian say, I felt like I was coming home. Because you could read the Bible and over and over and over and over and over again, it says that I promised this land to the descendants of Abraham, to the children of Israel forever. So we know this is the physical home of the Jewish people. This is the physical home of the Jewish people. But then I told her, because it dawned on me as I was like thinking this in my head, it dawned on me that if you believe in God and you believe in the Bible and you believe God's word is eternal, and you don't think God's a liar, God forbid, and you don't think God suffers from amnesia or has dementia or any of these other things that will make him forget what he said, then you know that his word is infallible, and so this must be Jewish land. But if you believe in God, you also know that his word emanates from what city? From Yerushalayim, from Jerusalem. And so if you believe in his word, then this is your spiritual home as well. And that's what I told her. And I think she was moved to tears to hear like a Jewish man, a religious man, said this is your spiritual home. Because if you believe in God, it is your spiritual home, but it's the physical home of the Jewish people. I'm just walking around here because there's this small little orchard, and this isn't biblical agriculture. You can see down below, this is like modern biblical agriculture. What do I mean by modern biblical agriculture? It says that when the Jewish people return to the land, we're going to make the desert bloom, and the land will come to life again. It will blossom once again. This hose you can see right here, this black hose, is not just a simple black hose. This actually has microchips in it and technology in it. This is the Israeli invention known as drip irrigation that has allowed us to move most of the agriculture here in Israel to the Negev Desert. 70% of all of Israel's agriculture is grown today in the Negev. That's hard to fathom. 70% of all of Israel's agriculture is now grown in the desert because of this. So this is modern biblical agriculture, but we are going to see the ancient biblical agriculture. What they did over here is they just grew some plants here, some of the 7 species of Israel. There's 7 special species that grow here. 2 of them are grains, barley and wheat. I live in a neighborhood called Dagan, which is one of those grains in Efrat. The other ones are grapes, anavim, grapes, which we're going to see some vineyards as well. We're going to end the tour actually in a beautiful vineyard here in Judea. We have dates. Dates usually grow closer towards the Jordan Valley, or even in the Negev Desert. So we don't have any date trees here, the big palm trees. But what we do have here are pomegranate, olive trees, and fig trees over here. And I think that's all of them then. So I just want to show you some of these beautiful pomegranates that are growing on this tree right here. You can see these beautiful, let me see if I can get in there. Look how gorgeous that is, huh? Isn't that a gorgeous pomegranate right there? And that's going to be ripe very, very soon. Of course, you know, one of the simonim, one of the signs, one of the blessings that we make on Rosh Hashanah, tomorrow night, we're doing Rosh Hashanah, is we're going to eat pomegranate seeds. because pomegranates have a lot of seeds. It's a symbol of fertility and prosperity. And so we say a bracha, we say a blessing on this, and we hope that we will multiply, that we be plentiful, and that we should have good parnasa, income, that we should have a healthy source of finances. So anyways, I didn't want to show you the pomegranate tree. What I wanted to show you was this tree. And who knows what tree this is that I'm looking at right here? Right? That is an olive tree. And I think the olive is amazing. It's a symbol of the Jewish people, because the Jewish people, we all know, has a lot of goodness to give, but sometimes it requires us squeezing it a little bit. And so you squeeze the olive, and what comes out? You get all that beautiful oil from it. You get the beautiful oil. But I don't want to focus on the oil, although we will talk about the story of Hanukkah in just a little while. I want to focus on the branch, because what is the famous story in the Bible pertaining to the olive branch? It's the story of Noah's Ark, right? The flood, right? The dove comes back with a olive branch in its mouth. And so what does the olive branch represent? Most people think it represents peace, but the olive branch does not represent peace. What represents peace in Judaism? Believe it or not, it is the figs, right? The fig tree, right? The fig leaf and the fig tree, because it says in the prophet Amos, one of the prophets that we can read in the Bible, it says that when the end of days, when we all have tranquility and everything is calm, every man will sit underneath the shade of his fig tree, overlooking another one of the 5 species, overlooking his vineyard, sipping on some delicious, yummy wine, some homemade wine. So the fig tree really represents peace. So what in the world could the olive tree and the olive branch represent? So the olive branch here actually represents freedom. It represents freedom. Rashi, who is one of the great commentators on the Bible, tells us God in his infinite wisdom isn't just picking random fruits and random plants to mention in the Bible. All of it is deep-rooted and has a specific meaning behind it. And what was the dove saying to Noah? He was saying, hey, man, I really appreciate you, and I appreciate you housing me for all of this time, and I appreciate you feeding me and giving me all of this delicious, yummy food, 3 square meals a day, but I got to be honest with you, I would rather eat this bitter fruit. The olive tree is the only fruit, the olive, of the 5 species of trees and fruits that we have here, the 7 species to a grain, of the 5 that are fruits, the only one you can't just pick from the tree when it's ripe and eat it. It's too bitter. You got to put it in brine. You got to do a lot of, preparation before you can eat an olive and enjoy it. So he's saying, I'd rather eat this bitter fruit from the hands of God than to have 3 amazing meals from you, like divine, amazing, delicious, yummy, hot meals from you, but be trapped in your golden cage. I'd rather eat some bitter fruit from the hands of God than to be trapped in your golden cage. And when I heard that for the first time, I said, my gosh, that is so important to understand in today's day and age, right? The Bible is not something far-fetched and ancient and we can't glean anything from it. It's written for us in every age. It's written for us, including this time right now. So when I heard that, I thought to myself, how many people are just like, my mom always says, whatever you do, don't become house poor. Don't buy a house that you're not going to be able to afford to do anything else other than live in your home, because you will be trapped in your golden cage. Don't buy that second car, or don't buy a new car and have a bank, car payment that you can't afford. And all I'm saying, the only thing you can do is drive around. You can't go to any restaurants. Don't be trapped in a golden cage. And today in Corona, right, where I think everybody's been affected to some degree, many people's income has been, I will say negatively. We don't, everything's for the good, everything's for the positive. We just got to learn the lesson, is that we're thinking to ourselves, maybe we need to reevaluate in the way which we spend our time and our money, because we don't want to be trapped in a golden cage. We want to be free. And that's really what the olive branch represents. Freedom is the fig. And look at that beautiful fig right there, huh? Figs. We already have fresh figs you can buy in the marketplace here. It's so great whenever it's in season is to have. So I usually have my cameraman, but here I am doing it all myself. Here is my amazing, awesome Ford Focus 2011. It's a mess. Don't judge me, please. But I'm going to jump into the car, and we are going to drive out of the neighborhood that we are in right now, which is called Negev Desert. And we are going to head towards the path of the Patriarchs, which really runs right through this neighborhood, but I gotta get on it. It's a dirt road. And our first stop has nothing to do with the Jews. And at the same time, it has everything to do with the Jews. And our first stop is going to be a Roman mile marker, a Roman pillar that was built 2,000 years ago, probably about 1,700 years ago or 1,800 years ago. A mile marker that was written on the same highway that our ancestors, the path of the Patriarchs, was built on. And I'm going to share some, I think, very, very important stories to understand, and also a little bit of Israel advocacy. I'm going to give you guys Israel Advocacy 101, something that you all need to have in your back pocket that you can pull out at any time, because we all love Israel very, very much. We realize that there's a lot of negative slander. I actually advertise these tours on Facebook, and I actually invest some money in advertising it as well. That's how some of you actually arrived here, as you answered the advertisement and subscribe to my mailing list. And what I, gosh, I forgot what the heck I was saying. I'm trying to drive. There's a little bit of traffic here. There's a guy behind me, so I'm just going to pull over because I'm driving very, very slow. I'm going to let him pass. See, the guy just passed me. Anywho, so on my Facebook advertisements, there was a lot of negative things. You know what I'm going to do? You don't need to look at me. I am going to turn this around and just stick it out the window so you guys can see what a neighborhood here looks like. This is a Judean neighborhood here in the Judean Mountains. So I was surprised I got so much hate on my Facebook advertisement from some people. Some people, said, called me, the house of Satan, that we are, they'll quoted something that said the Jews are really the synagogues of Satan. And then I had a lot of people who said, that's Palestine, it's not Israel. And so we want to be able to defend truth. We want to speak truth, and we want to be able to advocate for Israel. And so I'm going to give you Israel Advocacy 101, something that you just need to have in your back pocket in order to defend Israel anytime somebody says something negative or tries to negate our rightful existence here in our own land, in the land of Judea and Samaria. And so this is very, very important. We don't have stop signs here. We have these roundabouts. We do roundabouts here in Israel. We're going to come to the end of this road, and we are going to go through a checkpoint. It's not a major checkpoint. It's a gate. It's like if anybody lives in Florida, Bev, you're out in Florida. A lot of people.
I'm in Georgia.
Oh, you're in Georgia, right? You're in Atlanta.
Right.
So a lot of people live in Florida. People live in Florida. A lot of them live in gated communities. So all the communities there, most of them, I shouldn't say all of them, most of them are gated, and that's for obvious security reasons. So we are exiting. You can see if there was a problem, then this yellow gate would close. If there was like a serious issue, to make sure nobody could come in. And the security guards in there, and then cars have to come in. These are people coming home from work or from wherever, and they, have to go through that. I had to go through the security in order to come in. So now we're out of Negev Desert, and I'm making a sharp right-hand turn onto the security road of this area that circumvents the neighborhood. And I'm going to be making a left. The Patriarchs. All right, so that's the path of the Patriarchs. What? This paved road over here to the right, that's also the path of the Patriarchs. You know, I'm not going to take you on this tour, or maybe I even will. We'll see at the end. There is an Arab village that is built around the path of the Patriarchs, and you see some of the original paving stones there from when the Romans paved this path. And it's, you know, I'll call it a non-hostile neighborhood. I feel safe driving through it and stopping there. There are ones that you know not to go into. Obviously, there's an inherent danger in probably all those neighborhoods. But, you know, for the most, I'm not nervous going there. There we go. I got to focus on this road a little bit. You can see all the potholes and we're seeing. If you guys can look over here to your right just a little bit, you can see some of the valleys now. I'm not looking at the screen, so I don't know what you guys are seeing, but some of the communities. And here is stop number one. Stop number one. I'm going to park right here in the shade. I'm going to let the car continue to run because we're not going to be here for too long. Okay. Let's just take a quick little peek over here. So good to see your faces. I just like to scan across here a little bit and see who's with us. Hey, Karen, it's good to see you. Hey, my mom's here. Anybody wants to see my mom, you can sit up there. Hey, Mom, it's good to see you. I love you. I hope you're feeling good. Wonderful. That's great. That's Elizabeth. That's my mom right there. Hey, John, it's good to see you too. Esther, it's good to have you here again. So sorry for taking this little break, but it's so cool. Usually I have a cameraman, so I don't get to see everybody. You go ahead and turn your cameras on, and it would be awesome. Oh, wow, so many people. I'm not even going to go through it anymore. Okay, fine. I'm going back. Here we go. I am going to turn this around. Again, for those of you who just came, I usually have a cameraman, Phil. Anybody who's been on my previous tours, you know Phil's the best camera guy here in Israel. But he's in quarantine. He's in self-isolation. And he's in self-isolation because he came into contact with somebody who tested positive for the COVID-19. My whole neighborhood, it seems like, is in self-isolation because a bunch of teachers at the school systems that our kids go to tested positive. My wife and I are not in isolation. That's why I'm here, obviously. If I was, I'd have to cancel this tour. But I will tell you is that we were supposed to go out for all 4 of our Rosh Hashanah meals. We had to cancel them all because we're freaking out about the COVID. And we did all the prepping and the cooking. In fact, I made a great video of it. You guys can check my Facebook. I'm going to post it after this tour of all the good, yummy Rosh Hashanah food that we made. But we had to make it very last minute. And I'm just going to throw out the pitch again because there are a lot of new people. I'm sorry that I'm repeating myself here. But you guys should all know that I do these virtual tours because I love Israel and I love sharing all that it has, all the inspiration. But it is one of my only sources of income. So if anybody has it in their heart and in their wallet to leave me any type of gratuity, or even I'll call it a donation, I'll call it tzedakah, I'll call it even charity, as much as I hate to say that. The government is helping us out a little bit, but my entire business is just completely evaporated. And so I am basically sustaining myself and my family on your goodwill. And whatever you give, even if it's a prayer, Hashem, God should bless you 1,000 times over, and it should come back to you many, many times over. Anywho, so what are we stopping here for? We're stopping here because of this pillar over here. This is a Roman mile marker. This is a Roman pillar that we're looking at, a mile marker. You know, when you go down Highway 95, I'm from the Northeast, whatever highway is around you, you know, you look on the side of the road, you'll see like 17.8, 17.7. These are mile markers. Mile markers started really with the Romans, and they built mile markers on this road. It's one of the proofs that we have that this is the path of the patriarchs. I'm going to show you another proof, but that's one of the proofs because the Romans weren't innovative. They didn't create something new. They took something that was and they perfected it. And so they took this small road that existed here, already from the days prior to Abraham. Abraham only took this road, our patriarchs only took this road because they because it was here, because they didn't build the road, it was here, so they took the road. So they, if you guys, I'm just gonna go ahead and mute everybody. So sorry, hold on, mute all. There we go. So so they perfected it, and they built these mile markers. The mile markers go from Hebron all the way north, and the road continues north to an area called Shechem, which the Arabs today call Nablus. And this is mile marker number 11, which means we are 11 Roman miles, not much different than a mile today, a little bit shorter, but we're 11 Roman miles away from Jerusalem. We're 11 miles away from Jerusalem. As we continue south, we're moving south. As we continue south, the next mile marker we're going to see is going to be mile marker 12. Very good. Mile marker number 12. And the one after that, 13. And then 14, which we're not going to go to, was just discovered like a year and a half ago in an area here in Gush Etzion called Kfar Etzion, the village of Etzion. And Etzion comes from the word Eitz, which is a tree. These communities were resettled in the late 19th century by a German Jew with the last name Holtzman, tree man. So we named it Etzion really in honor of him. So we have this Roman mile marker. Now I'm just going to take you down this path over here. Hopefully the wind's not going to be too disturbing. Usually my cameraman also has his headphones on so he can hear what you guys hear. I can't hear what you hear. I just hear myself. But let's just flip this around. I'm going to show you this valley over here. Oh, wow, look at this. Huh? Is this not stunning, my friends? This is not stunning. This is beautiful. I have to say I live in the most beautiful area here in Israel. Look at the beautiful valley over there. Anyways, I'm not too sure you're going to be able to see it. Oh, yeah, the wind's terrible, huh? Who do we got here? Karen, I got you on my video. Can you give me a thumbs up if the sound is good or if the wind is disturbing? Either thumbs up if it's good. Let me see your thumb. It's good. Okay, cool. So just over in between, you got the valley right here. Just in between over there, you have one of the largest Jewish communities, which some people call a settlement. I hate that word settlement because it's got such negative connotation today. And I tell people, if you refuse to say Jewish community in Judea and Samaria, and you have to use the word settlement, so use the word resettlement, because that Jewish community right there is called Beitar Elite. Elite just means a high ground. Doesn't mean like they're elitist or anything. Just means a high ground. It's a high ground of Beitar. Just below it is an Arab neighborhood down in the valley right there called Batir. Batir. Did I say disputed territory? Yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit. I wasn't gonna go there, but if I said it, I will go there. So just down there you have Batir. And Batir sounds a whole lot like Beitar, doesn't it? And that is because it is Beitar. It's ancient Beitar. Beitar was a Jewish community here during the Second Temple period that was the last battleground. After the temple was destroyed, there was another, just look at the land here, there was another revolt against the Romans called the Barcode Revolt. It was called the Barcode Revolt. And it was very successful. In fact, it was so successful that it kicked all of Rome out of the land of Judea. However, Hadrian, who was the emperor at the time, came back in full force, and he brought half of the Roman army. And it said that the last great battle over there in Beitar, that there was blood in the streets that flowed all the way to the Mediterranean. And for those of you who were with us in the beginning, or those who are just joining us, I'm going to tell you now, is that on a good day from the overlook that we're at, the 1,000-meter overlook, 3,000 feet high, on a good day, you can see the waters of the Mediterranean. So from here, when it rains, all the water flows west towards the Mediterranean. It said that there was blood in the streets that went into the valley that flowed all the way west, all the way to the Mediterranean. I don't know if the blood was that significant, but in order to say something like that, you must have imagined that the horrors of what must have taken place over there. And of course, the Romans, as despicable as they were, didn't allow us to go there and to bury our dead properly. They just wanted our bodies to decompose out there in the valley. However, it is written that there was a miracle and that the bodies didn't decompose. And after 3 days, we were able to go in there and to go ahead and bury our dead. So that's Beitar. Most of the Arabs and the conquerors of Judea, right? The land of Judea, the land of Israel. Again, Israel obviously 101. The land of Judea, the land of Israel, what you're looking at right now, none of this has been independent since the destruction of the second temple in the year 70 CE, right? In the year 70 CE. Destruction of the temple in the year 70 CE has not been independent, not under Christians, not under Muslims, not under Jews, not under Hindus, not Buddhists, not anyone, atheists, you name it, never been independent until 1948, when the Jewish people were able to throw off the yoke of foreign oppression and once again claim their independence in our own land. This is so significant. Every minority or any group of people that has ever been oppressed should look to the Jewish people as a source of inspiration. And that inspiration is that if you never forget who you are, and you never just go with the flow, man, but you stick to your guns and you say, no, this is who I am, these are my traditions, and this is what I believe in, and I know that I am holding on to truth. And truth is worth more than all the gold in the world. Then eventually you'll overcome. It took us 2,000 years, my friends. Might not happen tomorrow, but eventually, it might not even happen in your lifetime, but eventually it will happen, that truth will overcome evil. Truth will overcome the despicable lies that are being told out there about the Jewish people and the land of Israel. And so we threw off the yoke of foreign oppression. We once again regained our independence. But for those 2,000 years that foreign occupiers occupied our land, both the Crusaders, Christian, the Byzantine, the early Arab period, the later Arab period, all of them, most of them kept the names that were here. And that's why that Arab village down there still retains the Second Temple period name, Batir or Beitar, because it never changed the names. The only name of the city that they changed here in the land of Israel, and it was the Romans who did it, was a city called Shechem. Go ahead, try and say that at home. Don't worry, you're on mute. Nobody's going to laugh at you. Shechem, right? It's not so easy. Okay, I live here in Israel 20 years. It's somewhat easy for me, right? But the Romans came and they were like, right? They couldn't say it, and they said, we got to come up with a different name for this, and they changed the name to Neapolis, which means the new city. New Polis city. They changed it to Neapolis, the new city. The only problem was when the Arabs conquered the land of Judea, the land of Israel, in the year 638, right? 638 is the first time Muslims conquered the land of Israel. They cannot say Neapolis because there's no pa sound in the Arabic alphabet. So Neapolis became Neopolis, and Neopolis would eventually become Nablus, right? You can see, like Beitar became Batir. It's not exactly the same, but pretty darn close. You know where it came from. You know its origins. You can follow the etymology of it. So Neapolis, Shechem became Neapolis, which became Neopolis, which became Nablus. Now, if the Arabs don't have a P sound in their alphabet, so where does the name, help me out here, where does the name Palestine come from, right? Remember I told you, I do these Facebook ads and so many people said, oh, the Torah's in Palestine, the Torah's in Palestine. And my response to them is, hey, if you want to tell me that the Arabs who live in the land of Israel deserve their independence in their own country, I am willing to listen to you. Let me hear your argument. But if you're going to say that this is Palestine, I have to correct you right away. Because there's never been, this place has never been independent since the destruction of the Second Temple until the year 1948. So where does the name Palestine come from? Well, that same guy, Hadrian, who destroyed the city of Beitar, where there was blood in the streets that flowed all the way to the Mediterranean. That same emperor, Hadrian, who destroys Jerusalem completely. Not one building stood after his wrath, and he builds a pagan city that he won't even call Jerusalem anymore. He calls Helio Capitolina. That same Hadrian will rename the land of Israel. And what does he name it? He names it Palestinia, right? Palestine. Why does he name it Palestine? So Palestine comes from the ancient Jewish enemy, known as the Philistines, right? Rabbi Barnea Sullivan, who participated in these archaeological excavation, who is a leader in his depth and knowledge of the battle of David and Goliath, right? Who was Goliath? What people did Goliath belong to? He belonged to the Philistines, right? The Plishtim in Hebrew. Shaul HaMelech, King Saul, the first king of Israel, wasn't King David. A lot of people think King David was the first king of Israel. King Saul, the Benjamite, from the tribe of Benjamin, not even from the tribe of Yehuda. The kingship only goes to the tribe of Yehuda after Saul's death, when David, King David, becomes king of Israel. King Saul, the first king of Israel, was killed by a Philistine, was killed by the Plishtim. So these are our first temple period enemies who were completely wiped out and destroyed by the Babylonians at the same time that we were taken into exile for 70 years. And Hadrian wants to name this land Palestine because he wants to throw salt on the wound. Not only am I going to defeat you, not only am I going to kill you, that there's blood in the streets that flows to the Mediterranean, but I'm going to rename your land. And for the first time, my friends, in 1400 years, Israel is no longer called Israel. It's called Palestine. Well, guess what? The Romans didn't rule here forever. They ruled here for roughly about 300 years. And after them, the Byzantine Empire came from Constantinople. And they scratched their heads. These are Christians, right? They scratched their heads and they say, do we go back to the original name, Israel? Or do we keep this name, this fictitious name, Palestine? And they said, well, hey, if we go back and we name it Israel, those pesky Jews, those stiff-necked, stubborn Jews who never give up, who refuse to just assimilate, they will think that they can gain their independence again, and they're going to rebel against us just like they rebelled against the Romans. And we don't need that headache. And so they kept the name Palestine. And then when the Arabs came in, they said the same thing. They kept the name Palestine, they kept the name Palestine. And they kept the name Palestine all the way till today, that so many people, even on my Facebook ad for this tour, said, that's not Israel, that's Palestine. But they don't know where the origins of the name Palestine comes from. You do now, and look it up. Contact me. I'll send you a video if you want. You can study up on this so that if any time somebody says that, you say, wait a second. Palestine was a name that was given by Hadrian 2,000 years ago to the land of Israel to spite the Jews. But there was never a Palestinian people. There was never a place called Palestine. It was never independent. It was always controlled by foreign entities until the Jews once again rose up and said, enough is enough. 2,000 years. The time has come for us to reclaim our independence and move one step closer to the destiny of humanity, which obviously is Mashiach, which is Messiah, which is, world peace, which is everything good in this world, everything that we want, everything that we look forward to, but work hard towards as well. Let me jump into my car again. We are going to continue. My mom's here. I feel so embarrassed because my car is a mess. She always says, you're too messy. I'm sorry, Mom. We're going to try and get it cleaned. But things were a little bit hectic because the Rosh Hashanah plans being canceled. All right, I am going to flip the camera around. You don't need to see my messy car. Although I do like this. Have a look at that. That's it doesn't smell good anymore, but that was a breath freshener I like. Some days you just have to create your own sunshine. Ain't that the truth? All right, here we go. Traveling down the path of the patriarchs. I mean, just awesome, awesome history here. And, as a Jew, as a Jewish man, I know without any doubt that not even hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of relatives of mine, and not even cousins, right? We're talking about great, however many grades ago, great-great-grandparents, that my ancestors took this road just like I'm taking this road now. Of course, they didn't have a nice, beautiful Ford Focus like myself, but I'm sure they had a couple nice camels, maybe some donkeys, and maybe even some of them did it by foot. Probably most of them by foot. But here we go. Whoa, a lot of potholes here. Thank God I got this wonderful camera on a little digi, a DJI, that keeps it steady. So you guys don't have to feel all the bumps that I'm feeling. But we are cruising along the path of the patriarchs here right now. I hope you guys appreciate that little Israel advocacy lesson. And really, email me, and I will send you a video that I made. It's like a 4-minute video on the name Palestine. It's very, very informative, and it's great. You can share it with your friends, and you can learn from it, and you can just stick that information in your back pocket so that you can be a defender of Israel. Right? I'm terrible at remembering and quoting scripture, but I know that in the Megillah of Esther, it talks about a time like this. And it's a calling, a time like this, that we can see this destiny of ours right before our very eyes. Something special is happening in the world. Things are changing. And the Jewish people have returned home to the land of Israel. And there are people who want to stop it. You guys remember the story of when we left Egypt? When we left Egypt, all those miracles and the plagues and the splitting of the Red Sea, after all those miracles, remember I told you that this was a road that's still being used today. Sorry about that. I thought I put on Do Not Search. It's a shortcut for people to get to their homes. So people do travel on this road on a regular basis. Anyhow, we left Egypt, all those miracles, everybody knew what had happened. Believe me, this was on. Even CNN reported on it. And it was heard around the world. And yet a nation called Amalek tried to wage war, knowing that they were going to lose, just to wage war on us. And here you have people speaking negatively about Israel, calling us the synagogues of Satan, calling our land Palestine, that we don't deserve to be here, that we're usurpers. Somebody even on the Facebook posted that the Jews of Israel are genetically connected to white Europeans. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I myself did that, 23andMe. I did the swab. I did my genetic testing. And it comes back Ashkenazi Jew, right? It's not the same. I mean, you can go ahead and get your DNA done, and you'll find out where all your different ancestors, different parts of the world that you came from. Now, obviously, we welcome converts with open arms, right? I have converts in my family as well. Not 100% Ashkenazi genetic Jew, but I'm 100% spiritual Jew. You better believe that. My neshama, my soul is. But yeah, there's a lot of people there who are 100% genetic Ashkenazi Jew, and this guy's trying to tell me that it's not true. This is what we're facing, though, my friends. There's more of them, unfortunately, than there are of us. At least it seems that way. All right, I'm going to turn this around. What do I mean by them? I'm talking about people who want to spew these lies. So it's important that we learn the truth, we speak the truth, we share the truth. And for many of you who have been here to Israel, you've seen the truth, you've touched the truth, you've smelled the truth. That's what's great about Israel. You know what's great about Israel? I'm going to show you right now. Look at this, my friends. Look at this. You know what's great about Israel? Look at what's right behind me right there. You guys see this? This is where I made the commercial if you're on Facebook. Look what I'm doing right now, right? I'm touching, right? I could taste it. I could smell it. I'm using all 5 senses. I can hear it. I'm touching history. What am I looking at right here? This is an ancient mikvah, a ritual bath for spiritual purification. It's not a place that you come to scrub yourself down and get all nice and clean. It's a place that you scrub your soul down, cleanse your soul. When would people, this is 2,200 years old, when would people come here in order to ritually purify themselves in this beautiful mikvah? They would ritually purify themselves before ascending, before doing the spiritual, and in this case, physical, aliyah, a rising up to the holy city of Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem. It says, our scriptures tell us that upon entering Jerusalem, one needs to purify themselves. So there's a debate, right? We have what's called the oral Torah, that after the destruction of the Second Temple, when the Romans forbid us from practicing and teaching and learning Torah, that some great rabbis came together and said, before all these debates and before all these differences get out of control, let's sit down and codify this majority rule. Let's figure out what the halacha is. And what is halacha? This is important. A lot of you might have never heard the word halacha. Some of you have. And those who have, how would you translate halacha? You would translate it into law, Jewish law. But I hate the word law. Ask my mom. I hate the word law, right? It makes, law, I don't know. I feel restricted. I feel confined. This is a Jewish law. Halacha comes from the Jewish word holech, which means to go. What is the oral Torah? What is halacha? It is the way of the Jew. It is the way of the Jew. And so we have a book of halachot, of our ways. And in that way, it says, upon entering Jerusalem, you got to spiritually purify yourself. So there was a debate. What does it mean to enter Jerusalem? Does enter Jerusalem mean that you, I see I got my shadow on my face. Does enter Jerusalem mean, my arm's getting tired, I'm holding this whole gig up. I missed my cameraman. Phil, where are you? So what does entering mean? Does that mean physically entering into the city? Or does that mean upon seeing Jerusalem? Seeing Jerusalem. You know what? I just saw a message from somebody and they just said, how can we donate? How can we give you any gratuity? In the chat, there's like a chat to everyone. There's like a thing there. I posted at the very beginning my PayPal link. If anybody wants to give me a donation or gratuity, however you want to call it, for this tour, or just to help me out during these difficult times with the collapse of tourism, go ahead, go there. Otherwise, send me a message. Not here, because after the tour is over, all the messages get erased. But send me a message on Facebook or email, and I'll send you out a link. But that's the best way. Oops, let me just go ahead and mute everybody. We got some new participants. Baruch Hashem, thank God. We want everybody to come join us. Let me just go ahead and mute all again. Okay. So anyhow, there's a debate. What does it mean to enter Jerusalem? Does it mean when we... How much longer is the tour? I don't know, maybe less than a half hour. Is that, with my camera guy, I don't know what time it is. I know I'm going overtime. I'm so sorry. Anyways, I said that you're entering Jerusalem or upon seeing Jerusalem. In the very beginning of the tour at Mitzvah Elef, I showed you where you can see Jerusalem, where you can see the Mediterranean, where you can see Jordan, the Moabite nation. So from here is the first place you can see Jerusalem. So on the path of the patriarchs, another proof that this is the path of our ancestors. All those Jews coming from as far south as Beersheba, through Hebron, and from Hebron, Hebron, all the way to Gush Etzion. A little bit further is Bethlehem. A little bit further than that, you have Jerusalem. This is the first place that all those people coming from the south. No PayPal, I'm so sorry. It's paypal.me/antelope runner. Don't ask me. I used to be, I love the band Fish, and they have this song called Run Like an Antelope. Anyways, trying to figure out how to change it. Just text me, email me, Facebook me, and I'll send you the link. Please ping it here. I can't do it. I'm sorry. I'm here. I'm getting so distracted. I'm super ADD. So, so this is the first place all those people come from the south. Hundreds of thousands of Jews. When? During the Shalosh Raglim, during the 3 major festivals. Are we approaching a major festival right now? Is Rosh Hashanah a major festival? It's not a major festival. It's a major holiday. It is the birth of... A lot of people here I can see saying world. It's not the birth of the world. The birth of the world was about 5 or 6 days ago. It's actually the birth of mankind. What do I mean by mankind? It's when God breathed the soul into these proto-humans, right? To these proto-humans, these animals that look like us, but they didn't have the soul. And they were given Hashem's piece of Hashem's soul. It's inside of all of us, Jews and non-Jews alike. We're all B'Tselem Elokim. We're all created in the image of God. We're all given this holy neshama that rises above all other animals. And so that's Rosh Hashanah. But the 3 major holidays, oh, thank you. Somebody just pinned it. Thank you. The 3 major holidays are Sukkot, which is coming up, Pesach, Passover, time of freedom, of redemption. And the third one is 50 days later, Shavuot, which Christians will call Pentecost, right? Shavuot, when we receive the Torah. These are 3 ones. And Jews are commanded to go to Aliyah HaRegel, to go to Jerusalem, if they can, if they're healthy, if they have the finances, if they have the ability to. So all of these Jews during these times would come here, and once they see it, they have to go to the mikvah. And this isn't any old mikvah. This is a beautiful mikvah, because in the halacha, in the way of the Jew, it says that a mikvah either needs 2 entranceways. You have 1, you have 2. As 2 entranceways, or if it doesn't have an entranceway, to have a wall. My friends, this is an incredible, incredible mikvah, because we have here both 2 entranceways, right? 2 entranceways, and a divider, and a wall. And what would happen is that everybody would go down impure on this side and purify themselves in the water, dunk themselves in the purification waters, and then come up on the other side. So we have a beautiful, beautiful mikvah that meets all of the criteria to make it a kosher mikvah. We have 2 entrances. We have a wall built in a place where you first see Jerusalem. When it rains, you know, the 6 months of the year, it spills out water. I know people, I haven't done it yet. I just moved out here to Gush Etzion, but you better believe I'm going to do it this winter. Have used this mikvah. How cool is that, to be able to use a mikvah that was used thousands of years ago by your ancestors? It's just totally awesome to come here to Israel and to be able to touch it. And because Jews are no dummies, and because we all need to make a little bit of a living, what do you have over here? This, my friends, is a wine press, okay? Over here is where you would, see if I can get the angle. Over here is where you would stomp your grapes. It would go through the little drainage channel that you can see right over here. Let me just turn this camera around, right? Stomp your grapes right there. Goes through the little drainage channel, right through there. Fills up this area, and boom, you're making wine. Somebody here said, hey, this is 1 day's hike away from Jerusalem. We're 1 day hike away from Jerusalem. We're 11 Roman miles away from Jerusalem, a day's hike. We just saw the Roman pillar, right? First place you could see Jerusalem. Go to the mikvah. Dunk yourself, pick up some wine that you're going to bring with yourself to Jerusalem in order to have yourself a l'chaim, right, to life, to give it to life. We're going to talk a little bit about the importance of grapes and the importance of wine in Judaism at the end of the tour. And that's coming up real soon. I know somebody asked, how much longer is it? Let me see in my car. I actually have a clock here. It is 6:09. Oh, so I've already been an hour. Okay, fine. Usually I start a little bit later, and usually I start on the half hour, but today was a little bit different because the sun's coming down a little bit earlier. So we are continuing to put my seatbelt on, not because of traffic, but because this car makes an annoying noise, which, by the way, that mechanism underneath the seat that goes off if you don't have your seatbelt on, I actually guided the daughter of the gentleman who invented that a few years ago. Obviously, they made a lot of money. A nice family, too. Wonderful family. Love being able to connect people here to the land, to Eretz Yisrael, because as good as this tour is, and I hope you guys are enjoying it and appreciating it, as good as this tour, I hope is, it's nothing like being here live. It's nothing like being here live. Let me see. You told before. I didn't see that. Sorry. You have to type that one in again. So anyhow, here we go. We're continuing. My ADD, I forgot what I was talking about. Here we go. Check this out. Gotta flip the camera around. And boom, another mile marker. Who can tell me what mile marker that is? Right, that is mile marker number 12. We saw 11 before. That's mile marker number 12. They found 13, and they found 14 just recently as well. But we're not going to see those. That's the last mile marker that we're going to see. Really, one is enough, but hey, we're not going to complain that we saw two. So here we go. We're going to continue, and I'm going to make another stop a little bit up ahead in order to discuss and to look out at some of the biblical agriculture, and also to talk a little bit about the story of Hanukkah. because one of the great battles of Hanukkah actually took place right where I'm driving, right now, literally, mamish, literally right here where we are driving, what you guys are looking at in your video. Cars coming, I'm just gonna pull over to the side because it gets very narrow here. And you can see the people who are comfortable, they just zoom right through. You got it, dude, come on. He must be a newbie. All right, here we go. Oh man, the car, no. Let's see here. All right, we made it. Woohoo. All right, I'm gonna pull over to the side right here. It's that time, everybody's coming home. All right, let me get a little bit further off to the side because cars are coming through here. You know, the last time I did this tour, I had a sponsor for it before the tour even began. And it was really for her kids. Her name was Laura Haleva from Seattle. She was supposed to come here on a trip 2 years ago, and her father was diagnosed with lung cancer, stage 4. It was terrible. He's no longer with us. His neshama should have an aliyah, a rising in heaven. But we did it in ATVs. If you guys have a congregation, a community, anybody back at home, you want to do a private tour for your community, I am happy, more than happy to do that for you guys private, or if you want to just sponsor, we open it up to the public, whatever you want, be in touch with me. I'd love to do it. We did it for them. We were looking out on some biblical agriculture. What is biblical agriculture? Okay. When the Israelites crossed the Jordan River and entered the land of Israel, we were told to conquer the land, to inherit the land, to drive the Canaanites out of the land, the Plishtim. We were successful in some places, not in all places. And we established, I guess, our de facto capital in a place called Shiloh. That's where the tabernacle, which would eventually become the temple, stood for 369 years. And Joshua is presiding over there, and the tribal leaders come to him and say, Josh, what are you doing to us? You brought us out to this land. We can't get rid of the Canaanites. They're in the valleys and the fertile ground. The Plishtim on the coastal plains, the other fertile ground. We're stuck on these hilltops, and these hilltops are barren, and there's no rain, and we can't grow anything, and we're starving. And one of the best lines in like all of Tanakh, right? Because now we're not in the Bible. We're not talking about the Torah anymore. We're talking about in the writings in the book of Joshua. And he says, "Come on, guys, use your Yiddish cup, use your intelligence, use your brains, be innovative, build cisterns and terraces and plant fruit trees." Well, this is the first time in the time of Joshua that we see terraces, archaeologically speaking, and cisterns being dug out all throughout the land of Judea. And they settled and they planted these fruit trees. These hills here in Judea and Samaria, you can see one of them a little over there. They are very steep. They are very, very steep. Hold on one second. Let me just mute everybody again. Mute all. You got it. You're good. Big old bus just came by. You see it? The big old bus. So, where was I? Oh, they're too steep, and the erosion, all the dirt gets forced down to the ground, forced down to the bottom, and is left barren. So we had to build terraces to stop the erosion. We built cisterns to collect water. But here in Gush Etzion, you don't need cisterns because there's so many springs. Remember I told you about it? And you can still see these walls that surround these hilltops over here. You can still see the agriculture over here still being grown, still using many of the stones from the first temple period. They're just being rebuilt and reused because they're already carved out. They're already there. So whoever's, using these walls and these terraced gardens have been used for thousands of years. How awesome is that, my friends? Look at what we're looking at right here. Biblical agriculture. My gosh, look at the land of Israel coming to life once again. It's blooming. It's blossoming right before our very eyes. Special time to be alive indeed. Anyhow, I told you I was going to talk about the story of Hanukkah. There is a community, Arab community on top of that hill over there. It's called Kirbat Zafaria. Kirbat Zafaria. And what does that mean? It means the ruins of Zakaria. Who or what was Zakaria? So Zakaria is a very big Jewish name, and we have the prophet Zakaria, but this was a place called Zakaria, probably after a man who settled it by the name of Zakaria. You got it. But why is it called Kirbat? It's called the Ruins of Zakaria. Who calls it the Ruins of Zakaria? Who lives there? I already mentioned it. It was the Arabs, right? It was the Arabs. The Arabs still call it Kirbat Zafaria. Why? Because they didn't change the names except for Neopolis, which Neopolis, Nablus, right? Batir, Beitar, Anata, just outside of Jerusalem, the birthplace of Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah the prophet, right? They kept all the biblical names. They called that Kirbat Zafaria because it was destroyed by Hadrian and the Romans, and they resettled it later, but it was always called the Ruins of Zakaria. But it was just over there that a famous battle took place during the story of Hanukkah, when the Romans came with 30,000 soldiers. I think it was 100, 200, 300 maybe. I can't remember the exact number. Let's call it 100. We'll go with the small number. 100 tanks, ancient tanks, which were elephants, war elephants, and Elazar and Yehuda, Judah, the Maccabees, right, are in Jerusalem, and they hear this, and Elazar comes running out, and he's like, I'm going to stop them. We're talking 30,000 soldiers. He comes. It was like Braveheart. I know Mel Gibson is probably not the best person to mention on a Jewish door, right? But Braveheart, he's coming, he's slashing, he's dicing, he's stabbing, he's sticking, and he's going through, and he's killing all these Greek soldiers. And he sees in the middle of all of them, he sees this one elephant with like golden armor. He's got all this golden armor. He's like, that's the head. That's the head. He's the general, and he fights his way all the way up until he gets there, and he stabs the elephant in the belly, and the general falls down, and he kills him, and it's a major, major, major blow to the Greek army. It's a major victory. Of course, we ultimately win that. The few against the many, the small against the big. Incredible story, but that takes place right over there. And there's another community just over there, much larger. That's Kirbat Zafaria, and there's a Jewish community you can see right there with my fingers waving. There's a Jewish community there called Elazar, named after Elazar, the great warrior, Jewish warrior, the brother of Judah HaMaccabee, right? The Maccabees, the story of Hanukkah. So just super cool. And, when you talk about Hanukkah and you want to come here, there's so much ruins and so much history and so many things that you can touch upon, whether it's pottery, whether it's archaeology, whether it's the ruins. There's so much that you can do here in Israel to touch upon the story of Hanukkah. It's not just about lighting a Hanukkah, which we wrongly call a menorah. A menorah is a 7-branch candelabra. A Hanukkah has 8. The menorah was in the temple. Oops, just hit that by accident. There we go. The menorah was in the temple. The Hanukkah was something to commemorate the miracle of the oil, which lasted 8 days. But oops, then put the brake all the way down. The miracle is really the war. I mean, how in the world do we defeat the mighty Greek army? Well, obviously we can't do anything without Hashem's help, but also it requires our own bravery and our own commitment and our own will in order to do anything great. We get it all done with the help of God, but He meets us halfway. We gotta take initiative. Prayer alone will not suffice. We gotta take action along with our prayers. So I got one last stop I'm gonna bring you guys to, and it's beautiful right now. I'm gonna take off my shades. The sun is already basically down. And let me flip this around so you guys can just see what's going on here. We are still continuing on the path of the Patriarchs, but there's a road. You can see a little sign right there, Patriarchs route. And this is a road here in Gush Etzion where I live. And we are crossing the road. And we are going down this path right here. Look at that. I can't see what you guys are seeing now. Hopefully the camera's looking at something good and not just my hood of my car. But look how beautiful that is at this time of the day with the sun going down behind the Judean Mountains towards the Mediterranean. Get some beautiful colors here. And I'm going to pull off to the side right here. And we are going to look out onto the vineyards here in the land of Judea. And I want to share one last story with you. Ugh. Check this out, my friends. Check this out. Oh my gosh. You know, I'm just going to say also Rosh Hashanah. It says that we pass before the Lord's eyes. We pass before God's eyes, each one of us like sheep. Each one of us, one by one. He looks at each one of us, like singles us out. Each one of us is important to him. And it says that we're judged in that moment. Why it's so important in Rosh Hashanah that you think positively of yourself, of your family, of your enemies, of your friends, of your loved ones, because God is going to judge us in that moment, however it is that we're thinking. And you come and you look at this beautiful view in the sunset over the Judean Mountains and the vineyards, and you see everything in bloom, and you can see the holy city of Beitar just over there. It is beautiful. And it puts a smile on my face. How can you not be happy this Rosh Hashanah after taking a tour? It's just tomorrow night after taking this tour and seeing the beautiful land of Israel. You know, I usually go into the vineyard to do this little thing, but I'm going to flip this around because this view is just too nice. Maybe I will go into the vineyards. I want you guys to see some of this. Ah, they must have just come and picked the grapes, my friends. Look at this. Look, they must have just come and picked the grapes, right? Still a few of them right there. Must have just come because last time I came here, which was a few weeks ago, I did one of these for somebody, and it was just filled with grapes. I said I was going to end with a little story about grapes. You know, when you think of Jewish wine and you think of kosher wine, what do you guys think of? Right? Manischewitz. Now, I see that we might have some people here who are north of 70. I feel like you need to be at least 70 years old to appreciate Manischewitz. My mom, bless her soul, she's 81 years old. She lived to 120. Whenever, here, look, I can't flip around in time. Two kids riding on their ATVs here. Great thing. You got to be 70 to appreciate Manischewitz. I go visit my mom, and she's like, oh, let's have a l'chaim, Manischewitz. Hey. I'm like, we don't need to drink that horrible wine anymore. We have beautiful vineyards here, beautiful vineyards. We have some of the best wine in the world that's grown right here in Eretz Yisrael. What do we need to drink Manischewitz for anymore? So what happened, in archaeologically speaking, during the first temple and the second temple period, we exported this wine to the kings, you know, to the aristocracy around the world. Everybody wanted Jewish wine. Everybody knew that the Jews made the best wine. Why? We've been doing it the longest. We've been drinking wine since we were 8 days old, right? The Brit Milah, circumcision, they put a little bit of wine inside in your mouth, right? On Passover, we drink 4 cups. We're commanded to drink 4 cups of wine. On Purim, we're commanded to drink so much wine that we don't know the difference between our friends and our enemies. That's how inebriated we're supposed to go. Every Shabbos, we're supposed to drink a glass of wine. Every Motzei Shabbos, Havdalah, as we break from the holy to the mundane, we're supposed to drink a glass of wine. Every holiday, we say Kiddush. We sanctify the day on what? On wine. So what happened that we produced some of the best wine in the world, and now when people think of Jewish wine, they think of Manischewitz. They think of this horrible wine. Why? So the Romans came. We saw the Roman pillars. They came. They destroyed the Jewish people, but they also like to drink heavily. I have a whole nother thing about Rome, but I'm not going to go into it because I know some people need to get going. Whole nother thing about Rome. But they kept the vineyards going. Then the Byzantine and the monks came here, and the Byzantine monks, they enjoyed wine as well, so they kept the vineyards. But when the Muslims came here, they have the 5 pillars of Islam. One of them is thou shalt not drink, and especially wine. Especially wine. They can't drink wine. I work with a lot of Arab bus drivers and Arabs, you know, within the industry over here. And if they're with me during Shabbat and I'm with a big group, I always invite them to join me. And they won't even have grape juice, because they're afraid that it fermented and it might have turned to wine. They won't even drink grape juice. So what did the Arabs do when they conquered this land? They destroyed all the vineyards and they burned them down to the ground. And for 1,400 years, wine did not grow here in the land of Israel until the modern Zionists came back here and they started to plant vineyards. And sure enough, here they are. And we started to win awards all over the world. And there's one winery called Flom Winery, Yitzchak Flom. I know him personally. I'll even call him a friend. He's a great guy. He won an award in Europe for the best Chardonnay. blind tasting. They didn't know where the wines were from, the grapes. They didn't know which winery was. A blind tasting. They won the award for the best Chardonnay. And they said, it's amazing, Mr. Flom, what you have done with our grapes. And he said, I think you're mistaken. It's not what I've done with your grapes. It's what you've done with my grapes. Because Chardonnay grapes originate in Eretz Israel. The Romans took it away from Israel and brought it to Europe and planted them in Europe. And that's why you named your town in France Chardonnay. It's not that the grape's named after the town's named after the grape. Because when you take the word Chardonnay and you divide it into two Hebrew words, what do you get? You get Shar, right, which means a gateway. And then Chardonnay, Chardonnay, Donay, Adonai, Adonai, Sha'ar Adonai. Adonai is God's name, right? We're really not supposed to speak it, especially in vain. But I think as an educational format that we're in right now, that I'm given permission to do so. Sha'ar Adonai, the gateway to heaven. And this gateway to heaven is received on a glass of wine. You know, historically speaking, it was the men who worked in the fields for 6 days and then they came home for Shabbat. How is it that they could go from 6 days in the field and then also enter into this holy realm of Shabbat and to be present and to be with their families after all the stress of the week of the work? Shadonai. You say a bracha, you say a blessing, you thank God for all your bounty, right? Christians have turned that into what they would call grace, right? And we say, thank you for everything that you've given us. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you, our Lord, who have given us the fruit of the vine, and you drink a glass. You say, Baruch atah Hashem, thank you. Blessed is our Lord who has sanctified the Sabbath, who sanctified this day, who sanctified this holiday. Because the secret of happiness, and we've been teaching this now since the days of Abraham for 3,800 years. You know who's catching on to it right now? Tony Robbins, right? All these new age motivational speakers. And what is it? Love. I like love, right? Love is important as well. Love, ahava, in Hebrew, it is oneness, it's wholeness, it's completeness, it's achdut, it's unity. Oh, now I forgot what I was going to say. Anywho, it's about, the secret to Jewish happiness. Gratitude, my friends. Giving thanks. Gratitude. And I didn't mean to do this, but I will do it because it just popped into my head. Please show me your gratitude. Please show me your blessings. Let Hashem bless you 1,000 times over. Please, if you have it in your heart, you have it in your wallet, if you enjoyed this tour, let other people know that I'm doing this. Share my Facebook post, get the word out there, let your congregation, let your synagogue, let your church, let your whoever know that you got this guide and you want to do an event. We could talk privately. I'll let you know how much that is, but if you can, give something, please donate, give something. This is how I support my family in these trying times during COVID-19. It's such a blessing to have had you all with me today. I'm going to go through. Let me put on the chat, and I want you guys to go ahead. Blessings from Houston. Thank you, Houston. Much love to you, Houston. I really appreciate it. Judy. Let me see some comments. Type them in. Shana Tova, Claire. Thank you so much. You should be blessed with a beautiful, wonderful, sweet new year. Dewey says Samaria, not disputed territories. Lee has been on a tour with me here in Israel. I did not get into it. I do say disputed territories because the land of Judea and Samaria is still not independent under Israeli sovereignty, right? We talked about annexation. Didn't happen. Wonderful, David. Thank you so much, Judy. I appreciate it. Thank you, Beverly. Thank you for tuning in again. I really do appreciate it. And hey, Phoenix, my brother's out in Phoenix. He lives in Chandler. Awesome. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. Oh, I'm so happy you learned so much. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you. Oh, wow, from Italy. We got something from Italy. Shana Tova to you, too. Galaxy Tab A. All right. Much love to you. I love the emoji. You guys are great. Keep them coming. It really warms my heart. Warms my heart to see you guys all here. Warms my heart to see you guys sending love my way. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. So happy to have made this tour. Many thanks. Healthy happiness to you and yours. To you as well. Crystal Fien, Friends of Zion. All right. To witness for you. Us non-Jews. There we can arrange Shabbat Zoom. I can't do a Shabbat Zoom thing. because it's Shabbat. I can't do Zoom on Shabbat, but that's a nice idea. I wonder how I could make that happen. From Plymouth, Minnesota, I spoke in Minneapolis a little while ago, a couple of years ago. It was wonderful. Love to make it back to the beautiful state that you live in. Looking forward to one next year. That's right, next year. Thank you, Judith. Okay, I'll see you guys all soon. Thank you, Italy. Thank you, guys. Much appreciated. So love it. So let's stay tuned. Like my Facebook, David Sussman Israel Tours, if you haven't already. I post up there all the time. I'll try and send some stuff out to the mailers. I really appreciate it. Pittsburgh says hello. God bless. Oh, Debbie and Scotty, thank you. You guys should be blessed a million times over. I really appreciated your support. Thank you so much. I hope that your pastor was able to make it. I know you had some difficulties signing in. Blessings from Vegas. Hey, what's up, the Halloos? I love you guys. Mwah. Love you guys. Shana Tova. Thank you for, oh, I'm going to have to give you guys a call and talk to you guys. I miss you guys. Thank you, Lee. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Very much appreciate it. LA in the house. Shireen. Thank you, Shireen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please let your friends know. I want more people from LA. I like LA. I also spoke in LA. I'd like to come out there again and speak in LA. It's a fun town to be in. All right. The texts are coming in slowly. Let me close this. Let me see who's still in there. All right. You know what? Before I'm going to end the tour, but I am just go to the chat and I'm going to see if there's a way that I'm going to try and just take pictures of it all so I can see what you guys said during the tour. Any feedback, guys, any feedback that you have, please email it to me. I want to make these better. I want to make them, you know, more accessible, but I want them to be more informative. If you couldn't hear me clearly, let me know. Somebody paying my PayPal. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. Just taking pictures of all the chats so that I have it. Oh, Vietnam. I'm so happy that you guys learned so much. That's great. That is great. It was a good idea, Garrett, to do a Zoom Shabbat meal. I don't think that's legal, though. Thank you. I told my son, too, he's in Jerusalem. Awesome, Claire. Send him my way. If he wants to come for Shabbat, send him my way. Love to see him. You know. All right. I'm going to see you guys. Sayonara. Love from Israel. Shana Tova.